Well, for analysis on this, we're joined by Southern Africa Coalition for Democracy and Accountability Executive Director, Blessing Vava. Blessing, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. It's seldom that elections go by perfectly. Even in the most developed and most sophisticated of democracies, there are some discrepancies within how elections have been carried out. The question often is, which courts ask, were those discrepancies enough to call the entire results into question and to taint the credibility of the result? Does the opposition leader, Brian Mundubile in Zambia, have enough on his side to be able to claim that there were sufficient discrepancies within the Zambian elections that results in an election outcome that's not credible?
Well, firstly, I think we need to look at the organizations that were doing the PVT, the tabulations, which they came to a conclusion that whereas there were 30 constituencies that were flagged, which had inflated figures, it was not enough to surpass or to reach the vote mark that President Hichilema had managed to pull. And also, if you look at how this election was conducted, it was conducted in a fairly free and fair manner. Of course, there were some incidents that were recorded of violence, disturbances at some polling stations. But by and large, I personally think that it was a decent election. But also, we became very worried, especially just a day after the elections, when we saw the opposition leader, Brian Mundubile, declaring that he had already won the elections when the coalition had not yet completed. And this triggered some of the tensions that we then witnessed in the coming hours and in the coming days, and that the Electoral Commission, which is the sole responsibility of announcing the election results, but we then had Mr. Mundubile prematurely announcing the results of declaring himself winner. I think it caused quite a problematic scene for the country.
Yeah. Now, there was a stop in the counting of the result, which then later resumed, which many, particularly opposition leaders, are claiming pointed out to an attempt at vote rigging. What's your take on that?
I think that the Electoral Commission, in all fairness, failed to manage that situation, because if they knew that there were constituencies that had problems, they were just supposed to stop the counting in those constituencies and let the rest of the country proceed with the counting, because what then did, the cancellation of counting, it left a void and it left some suspicion that there might be some shenanigans that are happening and there might be some rigging. And also in reality, which you also that the commission failed to really put its communications in order, that then left a void for speculation that there might be some shenanigans or some vote rigging that was taking place.
Yeah. Importantly here, what is it that needs to be tested in court as the courts consider the petition by the opposition?
I think that those who have brought the petition, for instance, in this case, we've heard of a case that was brought by Madame Linda Kasonde and her colleagues, is that the evidence, do they have the evidence enough to be able to discredit the election, to be able to say these disturbances or these malpractices that we witnessed, or the environment was not conducive for the country to have a free, fair and credible election?
Yeah, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. That is Blessing Vava, the Executive Director for Southern Africa Coalition for Democracy and Accountability.